we believe that the strong foundation with clear goals for the business, where do you want to be, and actually a really well articulated vision, what does that feel like to be achieving those goals, are really three key ingredients and foundational factors in making successful change.
Change needs to come from within, not an external force. When it's pushed and the decisions are made outside, that's when the energy, there's always a force that will come up against it.
People don't like change, and that's human nature. It's not, it's not unique to any specific person, but quite often the unspoken question where users come in is, it's what's in it for me? Why do I need to change what I'm doing if it's not going to benefit me?
So we had lots of pockets of data everywhere, and an opportunity to really sit down, review, process map, and actually have the whole team, have every champion from every department in the business really understand and start to kind of explain what they needed from a system.
Hi folks, and welcome to a special episode of Made to Grow. Today we're sharing the recording of a recent Flowlens webinar where we introduced the Fearless Digital Transformation Framework for SME manufacturers. If you're facing challenges like scattered spreadsheets, disconnected systems, or just trying to figure out how to bring your team along on the journey to digital efficiency, then this one's for you. I was joined by a brilliant panel of digital transformation experts: Angela Fumpson from White Tiger Consulting, Oliver Caunt, Managing Director at JCS Nuclear Solutions, and Flowlens' own Marv van Niekerk. We focused on the first two steps in the Fearless model, foundations and engagement, and talked through what good looks like when you're trying to make lasting, practical change in your business. Before we get into it, a quick thank you to the partners who helped us promote the event: Manufacturers Hub, Connex Portal, Manufacturing NI, and the Essex Manufacturing Alliance. We really appreciate your support in helping us reach more manufacturers across the UK. Let's get into the conversation.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us as we introduce the Fearless Digital Transformation book and framework that we have written and launched over the last couple of months. At Flowlens, our mission is to help companies be the best that they can be, and that's not just with great software. It's about how they create cultures that are capable of evolving and adapting to the opportunities that are out there, as well as obviously the uncertainty. Before I jump into that in more detail, I firstly want to thank our panel for giving us their time today. So let's just kick off with some introductions. So Angela, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela. Company is White Tiger. I'm an executive business mentor. I'm chartered quality professional and an all-round just process improvement geek. These days, my focus is mainly on bringing people and process to work in harmony, basically just to power up personal performance and the business growth. And that's me in a nutshell. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Angela. And Oliver, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Rich. Hi, everybody. So my name is Oliver Caunt. I'm the Managing Director of JCS Nuclear Solutions. We're an SME, UK-based SME, who provides nuclear radiation sensing and shielding solutions. So we're an equipment manufacturer and a customer of Flowlens.
Brilliant. Ollie, thank you. And last but not least, Marv.
Thanks, Rich. Hi, everyone. I'm CEO at Flowlens. I come with about 5 years now with Flowlens, coming up to 5 years. I have an accounting background, which I don't tell everybody. So even a long-standing customer like Oliver might be surprised by that. But it stands me in good stead where, giving my age away, I was around when digital accounting was first introduced about 20 odd years ago. So I have experienced whole industries being changed, digital transformation. And I think, if you asked anybody in accounting today, if they picked up a ledger and a pen to do debits and credits, they'd probably scoff at you and go, that's, you might as well pick up a quill pen and dip it in an inkwell and start, writing on papyrus or something like that. So yeah, been around a while, have seen industries change and transform for the better. So bringing my experience with that into Flowlens and Flowlens customers who are embarking on various transformation projects.
Brilliant, thank you, Marsh. And just by way of introduction for myself and the agenda, so I'm CEO and founder of the business of Flowlens. I've been involved in digital transformation for nearly 3 decades, which gives my age away as well, working largely with manufacturing customers over the years and seeing both the benefits and the sort of challenges of transformation. So today we're not going to cover the whole framework, but I will give you a quick overview of what Fearless is and jump into a couple of the key early elements. Mar is going to follow up with some of the more detailed benefits of change and some experience from our world, and then Angela is going to talk more about the foundations of success, vision, energy, engagement, and finally Oliver is going to bring us into the JCS world and a crossroads in their journey, which was really inspirational as to how he went about taking the business on its next chapter and its digital transformation journey. So in terms of Flowlens, just for context for anyone who doesn't know, Flowlens is designed to be an all-in-one platform for SME equipment, device and machinery manufacturing companies like JCS and many other companies who are across a range of sectors like aerospace, energy management, agriculture, batteries, you name it. What we're about is creating an automated and scalable solution to help those businesses grow without adding unnecessary overhead, eliminate duplication and errors, and also provide a rich source of data for insights and improvements that allows the business to be the best it can be. So this involves creating a single version of the truth across sales, purchasing, operations, service, and finance with user-friendly workflows and reporting. And you maybe hear a little bit more about the results of that with Oliver later. Marv is going to talk about some of the benefits of effective change and why business as usual, that quill is going to get pretty blunt. Marv, why business as usual is no longer tenable in the sort of age of AI, machine learning, and kind of instant gratification. So the Fearless framework basically came about as I started sketching the elements that we see successful companies follow whenever they're de-risking and sustaining successful change projects, particularly obviously when it comes to employing new software. And I was also thinking about what holds so many companies back from reaching their potential. It's trying to demystify the process of going from the daily grind, Fridays deliveries, those things those commitments to customers that we must keep, and all of the other aspects of running a business, to actually be able to make the reality that you have in your head a possibility. And also in some cases, people don't necessarily realize that the power of vision. So, like I said, today we're going to focus on the first 2 elements, the foundations and the engagement. And I'd encourage you, if you visit flowlens.com, you can download the book for free. There's a PDF version that you can download for free, and I really appreciate your feedback. Also, please be aware you can add comments and questions into the chat, and we'll have a couple of minutes at the end to cover those. So just diving into Fearless a little bit more. Across my career, I've seen companies attempting digital transformation. Some of those have been driven by the leader and the founders of the business. Some coming from within the business, where somebody just takes ownership of a particular area and drives it forward. And the key ingredient of those has been the foundation that those change makers kind of put in place. Angela and Oliver will talk about this in more detail, but we believe that the strong foundation with clear goals for the business, where do you want to be, and actually a really well articulated vision. What does that feel like to be achieving those goals? What are the different aspects of the business doing to make those goals happen, and what does it feel like to be in that state? And also then the commitment of leadership are really 3 key ingredients and foundational factors in making successful change. And that final point is vital. If you don't necessarily need to be the person who's rolling their sleeves up and doing the transformation and doing the hard work, but you do have to embrace the tools. You have to be seen to be using them. And actually, if people don't see that, then they won't value what the effort that you're looking them to do. So it won't happen. So that's foundation in a nutshell. The next phase is about engagement. So once you have that vision for where you want to be in place, how do you bring your people along with you? So we all know that imposing change rarely works. We've all been in circumstances that has happened, and we don't like it. So Angela will touch on this as well, and Oliver, but how do you get your team involved in that vision? How do you get them bought into it? How do you get them to help you enrich that vision? And we preach commonly about process mapping, understanding what's happening, where the work is done, and listening to people about their challenges, because rarely will you get the solution to a problem in the boardroom. You'll get it where the work happens. So that engagement phase is really vital. So you get an understanding of the solutions that are going to work, and then get that buy-in from the team that the effort that's going to be required, which can be it's not insignificant. It's shared effort. People are sharing the risk, but then they'll see the rewards of embracing that sort of culture of continuous improvement. So that's it, just in a nutshell. I just want to pass over to Marv, who's going to elaborate further on his experiences with some of our projects and customers.
Thanks, Rich. If we look at some of the reasons behind why businesses need to change, and there's a couple of different factors that they either choose to change, where there's a culture of continuous improvement. They're always looking to do things better, faster, cheaper, get things out the door, reduce redundancies or duplicate processes and things like that. And quite often that's a dream client for us, because they embrace change as part of their everyday working. Other factors, external factors, you've got market forces which force a business down a particular road, and you've got there could be supplier requirements, customer requirements, even something as simple as a key supplier saying, right, you've now got to place your purchase orders through our portal, or customers saying you've got to upload your invoices through our portal. Things that just force you down to do things differently, and that's change. Change can be as small as how you send an invoice out or how you place a purchase order. That is still change, which requires somebody to do something differently, and people don't like change. So that's the other thing, but I'm sure Angela will touch on that later. And then you've got existing systems that are no longer supported, and for various reasons. It could be Sage Manufacturing deciding, right, we're not doing this anymore, and that forces you to look elsewhere if you want a robust system for your business. And then there's the horrible one where something catastrophic has happened in the business. Somebody's forgotten to place a purchase order, and that led on to a delay in manufacturing, which has led on to a delay in getting something out the door to the customer. And it's a knee-jerk reaction as to why change is required in the business. So either way, there's a need for change, and this has to happen in the business in order to improve things. So what's important? There's 3 kind of main things I want to touch on today. And first, as Richard said, is that solid foundation within the business. establishing a clear goal on the problems that you're trying to solve and the goals that you're trying to achieve by embarking on the change. And it could be as simple as Rich touched on there, a single source of truth. We've all worked in places where there's multiple spreadsheets flying around, and all with various, or let's say various. It's some of the information could be outdated. Let's say we worked with a customer who basically said, went through the process successfully with Flowlens and said, if it's not on Flowlens, it never happened. So again, single source of the truth solves a lot of miscommunication throughout the business. The other part of that is it's a business decision. It's not a me decision. So again, where a lot of projects fail is because of the lack of the team buy-in or the lack of understanding across the business as to why we're doing this is pretty crucial. And then having the resources, the time, and the budget in order. There's never a good time, a right time to implement a system. So understanding that it does take time. There's business as usual. For the SME market where we operate in, not a lot of people have a dedicated project manager to implement a new system. So there has to be a realistic estimation on resources, time, and budget to implement a new system. Quite often I'm the handbrake on these projects because you need to crawl, walk, run. A lot of businesses have the initial expectation of, we can do this in 2 weeks. It's not realistic. So setting those expectations early on and having a solid foundation is critical. And part of that is the data that you use or going to put into, if it's a new system you're implementing, is making sure that how accessible is the data that you're transferring from one system into the other. Do you need to go through a data cleansing exercise as part of that? And if you think of building a house, if you're embarking on a system change, for example, if you're building a house, you want to build that on solid concrete foundation. And if your data isn't up to scratch or what you need in order to meet your goals at the end, you're building on sand, and over time that system will fail and it will no longer be relevant to your business. So establishing that solid foundation in terms of data and a realistic expectation of how long it's going to take and the goals and problems that you want to are key in those early stages. And next bit is communication. And this might be yes, I work for a tech company, but I'm going to say techs fail, not technology. And I'm not being biased on that. Team buy-in, as has been mentioned earlier, and again, Angela will elaborate on this, is absolutely crucial. And we have seen instances of projects failing where you've got top-down decisions that have been made. For example, we engaged early on with the client who said, yes, Flowlens want it, great. And then went, and here's the team, and they're going to be responsible, go away and make it happen. And, it's almost like an instant recipe for disaster where the team's pain points, their requirements are not understood from the outset. They're surprised. They have no input in evaluating the system. Is it going to work? It's a recipe for disaster again. So there's an internal sales job that whoever is, the team responsible for driving that change, that initial change, for selecting the system, there's an internal sales job that needs to be done in order to get the buy-in from the team across the business. It's incredibly important because sorry, Richard.
I was going to say that's a neat segue into Angela's piece, but finish your point there. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, just to go back onto the people don't like change, and that's human nature. It's not, it's not unique to any specific person, but quite often the unspoken question where users come in is, it's what's in it for me, because ultimately, it's that, well, I'm not going to do this. Why do I need to change what I'm doing if it's not going to benefit me, despite what it means for the business? So that internal sales job and bringing people with you on the journey is crucial to doing this. And if I have time, the last bit is the project, is that actual team who are responsible for the project. Ultimately, again, you want to have somebody in the business who's at in project management terms, that project sponsor, who is sitting at director level in the business, who ultimately is there if anything goes wrong, or ultimately they understand the business needs, they understand the strategy, the vision, what the business is trying to achieve, and they will always be there to kind of steer the project in the right direction. But then you need people on the ground, and you need those champions who have enough kudos in the business to be able to effect that change and drive that change through the business. Because we've had near misses with projects. Quite often you find that in some businesses, not always, some will go, oh, we've got a new start that's coming along, and hey, we'll just dump this on their plate because everybody else is too busy to do it. And again, it's one of those red flags that just instantly wave up, where this person doesn't know the business, doesn't understand your requirements, doesn't understand what success means in terms of implementing this project. And similarly, if you give it to the intern or the office junior to go and say, right, implement it, and this, think about it in these terms. Here's the junior person. Go away and implement a system which is going to revolutionize our business.
Doesn't make sense.
That's my mic drop. That's my mic drop moment.
Brilliant, Marv. Thank you. That definitely sums it up. Angela, would you like to pick up on that point, on that piece in particular?
Absolutely. Yeah, it reminds me of just early days of growth. You bring lots of new people in and they're busy taking notes, and we go, oh, those notes are brilliant, why don't we make that our procedure? And then the youngest person in the company has just started to write the procedure for your business, when you should be designing it first and bringing them in. The other thing it made me think of, Rich, is what we said the other day: the result you get is the communication you give. It is all about the communication. And really, I mean, you think about prosecute, the one thing they said about the resistance to change is it's emotional reasons, it's fear. So people are absolutely key. If you think about their ADCA model, I don't know whether everyone's aware of that, but it is about awareness, it's about desire, about knowledge, it's about then the training and ability, and then reinforcing that. And the reason I mentioned that is the support is not just during the project. There's an experiment you can do. You can even graph it. When you ask people to write a sentence or their name and time them, and the correct ones gets a point, get a team together. Then you ask them to write every other letter of that statement and time themselves. And if you graph it, you watch, people will speed up on the first exercise. On the second one, they'll speed up, and then their brain will go, well, what if it's wrong? So they'll start to question it. And they'll actually slow down, and then they'll speed up again. So it's after the event that they need the support, when their brain is going, I'm questioning, is it right? It might be a bit clunkier. I'm still learning. Is it correct? So the support is really, really key, that we do it after the project. That's when they start questioning it. And that's maybe where, when you're running a project, that might end, because we focus on all the training and getting everyone up to speed. So it just made me think of the support that we need after the project as well, and the ongoing support. So for me, I just wanted to share just a few simple points that I found that help organizations when they change. The first thing, I think, because we can only change when our people truly change and they come on board with us. And we talked about strategic vision and direction. Well, I would like that taken down quite a few layers and chunk it down, because my question is there enough vision? You say, what's in it for me? Is there enough detail on that vision of their perspective and frame how it will look in their view, if that makes sense? So detail and clarity on it being framed in their new world. So vision can apply for anything. It can apply to big business, but it can also apply to small actions. So shared vision, as we know, can be really compelling. It can be exciting. It can also be motivating. You know, it's like an analogy. You're a business leader. You're looking at the pipeline. You're making money. Money, you know, yeah, it's great, but it's boring until you think about what you can do with that money and the investments you can make and the changes you can make. So what I'm on about is talking about a vision that excites your team. I mean, I want people to get really creative with it. I've seen people put things on the wall, fun, planes, each part of the plane, the engine, the fuselage becomes a part of change in the business. So, the first point is, can we bring that detail in? Can we take it to the movies? Because the opposite of that is the fear of the unknown. And that's when people fear, jobs, change, will my job still exist if I take away all these spreadsheets that I enjoy making? I think the next thing is, we talked about people becoming on board and people becoming involved, and change needs to come from within, not an external force. When it's pushed and decisions are made outside, that's when there's always a force that will come up against it. So how can we get people on board actually taking the decision themselves that we need to change? And that, we talked about process mapping. I think process mapping is an absolute catalyst for that. Because if you can get everybody involved, it's a bit like Marv's talked about, the right person for project management. Doing things like a Gemba walk or a customer journey, you need the right person that's impartial, that will just go in and just absorb and then document. And the idea is that you take that map then and you put it on the wall, and people need to get acclimatized to the change, acclimatized to the new vision. So they kind of make friends with that new process then, and they can comment. And if you run workshops alongside that, then you can start getting feedback and people feel listened to and people can come up with ideas. Because I guarantee when you're walking that customer journey, if you've got a big team, there will be people that do things differently. And you need to come to a consensus and agreement of the flow and the way things work. And just be aware that that is not a one-off exercise. So as you're running a project, you need a forum for two-way communication, a safe space where people can come and raise their concerns, ask questions. So that's a really, really important point. Rich knows me well. I talk about energy a lot. I think the last thing I want to talk about is we talked about leadership in the beginning. And we need to keep those comms open, and we need the comms in every single level of the organization. And that needs to be translated for their map of the world and what they understand. And, the top C-suite, the leadership team, even if they're not involved in the project, even the board, they need to know what's happening and they need to understand it. Because even if they're not involved, if they're feeling unsure about the project, even if they don't voice it, the team will know. Saying I don't know whether it's the aerospace or automotive world, I'm going back a bit now, but they always say, what shadow are you casting? And your energy, your team will know if you're not 100% behind or if you've got any worries about the system coming in. So everybody needs to be informed whether they are in the project or not. I think for me, the last thing, if we can get that vision in place, we'll get better decisions. Just imagine if you've got that vision concrete and all your team are in flow. We need to keep that alive. So if we can get something on the wall, you need to keep it in mind daily. This is something Rich and I have spoken about in Flowlens. You get a really vivid vision, but it's not a one-off. It's not like designing your values and then putting them on the website. It's about finding a way to keep that in mind every single day. So they then act in alignment with that vision and they become excited by it. And they'll bridge the gap then between that vision and where you're going. So just think about really creative ways to bring that vision to life on a daily basis. And then the other thing I wanted to say just lastly is just decide how you're going to celebrate and design that outcome. because
That's
you
a very good point.
get behind it. Your attitude and your energy becomes infectious, and you can totally becomes a compelling force then to that end.
100%. I know we have to celebrate the wins.
Yeah, however small.
I think I'm going to ask our viewers if they can bear with us, because we've gone on slightly longer than I thought we would, and we've left the story to the end. So we don't want you to rush through what's an important story. So thank you for bearing with us. But Ollie would be keen to hear the real world application of what happened and what was the catalyst for your journey.
Yeah, cool. So thank you. Ours was we were as a business, we were in a position where well, this is back in 2001. We had a in-house finance manager and in-house accountant that had been with us for a long time, and she was coming to retire, and had been in charge of all of our processes and all the financial management of the company. But we knew that there was going to be a line in the sand, and what were we going to do post that member of staff leaving the business, retiring. So we spent some time engaging with our external firm of accountants, Horsfield and Smith, who were local to us up here. And we sat down with them, and they did the engagement at the beginning, where we did the whole process map of everything that we're doing that delivers data, financial data in the business, whether that's how we manage all of our invoicing, all the systems that we use, all of that. And it transpired that we were on a daily basis interacting with 13 spreadsheets that people in different locations in the country were all trying to manipulate and change, with all the risk that's involved with that, sort of like networks and all that kind of stuff. But what was most fascinating was most of the data that these spreadsheets were pulling from was all coming from the same place. It was all things like cash flow forecasting and job costing and stock control, all that kind of thing. But essentially the data was coming from a very similar kind of location, just displayed in different in different ways, giving us different bits of information. But it was a lot of manipulation. We think it was almost 2 days a week of someone's time doing all of this work. So that was a surprise to me, but also quite enlightening, and really the beginning and the catalyst of our sort of digital transformation journey. We were running an old-fashioned on-premise Sage system, and the accountant would advise really we got to move on to a cloud-based system, which they recommended Xero. And from that, things started to evolve really quickly, where we started to understand the benefits that a cloud-based system would give us, and then actually this opens up the opportunity to really review what CRMs we're using. And prior to Flowlens and Xero, we were using a combination of lots of equipment or lots of software, being spreadsheets, an old version of a CRM system that failed to talk to Sage anymore, so we've given up on that, mostly Outlook. So we had lots of pockets of data everywhere, and an opportunity to really sit down, review, process map, and actually have the whole team, and Angela, you said this, have every champion from every department in the business really understand and start to kind of explain what they needed from a system, basically. So because we all have different requirements from what we want from a finance system, CRM system. So we settled on the Xero platform, and then we identified a couple of CRM platforms that we knew integrated seamlessly with Xero. Flowlens was one of those, and another. And we did some trials on both systems and quickly settled on Flowlens. Then the fun began, where the staff buy-in was really, really important, because again, we all have a different function in the business that all needs a different set of data, basically. So we worked with Flowlens for quite a long time, actually, where you guys gave us a sandbox to play in. And effectively what we tried to do was set up a business from scratch in a safe environment and try and break it. And actually everybody tried to sort of manage a system for our own devices. And then we'd all sit down, review, and say, okay, this works for me in finance, this works for me in sort of like sales administration, or this works for me in product management and stuff. And that worked really, really well. So that was the buy-in. Everybody had an input, and that really helped define what it is that we're trying to get out of both. Flowlens really does become the operational backbone of the business now, and the zero side sits underneath it almost, and that's managed by our accountants in in the background and a few members of staff, but that's it. So we spend a lot of time defining the system, and then at that point, and Marv, you said this, the hard work is going into cleansing the data. So we've kind of mapped new processes, understood what that is, and then understanding what the data is that we need to bring into the new system, but also the data that we need to archive, still have access to, and understand how that's going to work, sort of moving forward. So that took a lot of time, but it was very valuable. We were lucky because it was COVID and it was quite quiet, so we had the time to do that. But I think without doing that, we would have just imported a load of junk data that would have just made the thing a lot more clunky as we were moving forward. So that bit was really, really important. And then lastly, the thing that took a bit of time to get our head around is use off-the-shelf systems. Don't try and use custom your systems at all, because the more you do that, the more things can break further on. And that's what we were having with our Sage, where we had bolt-ons for CRMs that fell apart and all that kind of stuff. So there was a bit of a change in understanding how we're going to work with Xero and Flowlens in terms of our own internal operating procedures. But it's far safer to do that because we now have a system that's quite ubiquitous, that is easy to train people on. Took a bit of changing culture on how we operate a little bit, but we're a small team and we're quite agile, and that kind of worked for us. I can appreciate in larger organizations that could be quite difficult, and you would need your champions in different silos of the business. But as a tight unit, we're able to actually kind of embrace that and go with it. So now we operate with a system where we're in control of it, but it's not the system that's wagging the dog. We're working in cohort with the system now, basically. So get the buy-in from the team. Everybody has a different way of working with the system and understanding what information they need from the system for their day, for their day job. Buy-in, cleanse your data, and practice. The sandbox bit was really useful for us. So that's kind of where we are with it basically now. But it's part of our everyday life now. It's great.
Brilliant, thanks, Ollie. I mean, there's a lot of threads there that you've just pulled together, if you like, in terms of that point you made there. What's in it for me? Different people have different requirements, and they have different demands out of the system. And the point you made earlier, Angela, I think I love the saying that the result you get is the communication you give. Is such a great mode of thinking as well. And yeah, framing it in that person's new world, I suppose the sandbox, we just see it as a practical tool, but actually it's a way for that person to see how their new vision, their new world is going to work and get comfortable with it as well. So brilliant. It's nice when all of these things come together. Look, I appreciate we're running a little bit over our advertised time, but I appreciate everyone giving their time and exploring that all in more detail. I just wanted to remind everyone, thank you firstly for watching and listening. You can download the book from flowlens.com, and if we can help, or if you'd like us to put you in touch with either Oliver or Angela, give me a shout. My email address is rich@flowlens.com. So once again, thank you, Angela, Oliver, Marv, for your contributions today, and I'll see you all soon.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Rich.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. It's so vital to get the foundations right for your digital transformation journey. And even if you've started down a path, it's not too late to revisit the fundamentals. If you'd like a copy of the book, please visit flowlens.com for your free download. Till next time.